In a world where everyone tells you to be kind, forgiving, patient, and understanding, very few people teach you how to protect your soul from people who take advantage of that kindness. You keep giving chances because your heart is soft. You keep staying because you don't want to hurt anyone. You keep lowering your needs because you are afraid of being called selfish. But slowly, without realizing it, you start disappearing from your own life. Your peace becomes smaller. Your mind becomes heavier. Your happiness starts depending on how others treat you. And Buddhism teaches that this is how attachment becomes a prison. The question is not whether you love them. The real question is, how much of yourself are you willing to lose just to keep people who keep draining you? 1. The first betrayal is always against yourself. Every time you ignore what you truly feel just to keep someone in your life, you slowly go against yourself. Maybe you tell yourself, it's okay, it's not a big deal, even when something clearly hurt you. Maybe you stay quiet to avoid conflict, or you keep accepting behavior that doesn't feel right just because you don't want to lose that person. In those moments, it may look like you're being kind, patient, or understanding, but deep inside, you're teaching yourself that your feelings don't matter. And this is why it's so dangerous, because it doesn't feel like self-betrayal at first. It feels like love, like loyalty, like maturity. You convince yourself that you're doing the right thing, but over time, something starts to change inside you. You begin to feel drained for no clear reason. Small things start to irritate you more. You feel unappreciated, unheard, and emotionally tired. That's because every time you silence yourself, you create a small distance between who you are and how you live, and that distance keeps growing. Buddhism teaches awareness, and the first step is to notice this pattern clearly. You are not exhausted just because of people. You are exhausted because you keep choosing their comfort over your truth. The moment you start listening to yourself, respecting your feelings, and setting quiet boundaries, everything begins to shift. You feel lighter, clearer, and more in control, because for the first time, you are no longer abandoning yourself just to keep someone else. 2. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not everyone who enters your life deserves your time, your attention, or your emotional energy. But many people never question this. They give automatically. They reply instantly. They listen endlessly. They care deeply, even for people who don't do the same for them. And over time, this becomes a habit where you are always available, always giving, and slowly becoming empty without realizing it. Think about it. Every conversation you have, every problem you listen to, every situation you emotionally invest in, it takes something from you. Your energy is like a limited resource. If you keep giving it to people who bring negativity, drama, or confusion into your life, you will start feeling drained even if you didn't do anything physically tiring. That's why sometimes you feel exhausted after talking to certain people, not because of what you did, but because of what you absorbed. Buddhism teaches mindfulness, especially about where your energy flows. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you do need to become more aware. Notice who leaves you feeling calm and who leaves you feeling heavy. Notice who respects your time and who takes it for granted. The moment you start protecting your energy instead of giving it freely to everyone, you feel more peaceful, more focused, and more in control of your life. 3. Letting go is not loss, it's liberation. Letting go is one of the hardest things a person can do, not because it is complicated, but because it goes against everything your mind has been trained to believe. You were taught to hold on, to fight for people, to never give up on relationships, to prove your loyalty no matter what. So when the time comes to release someone, your mind doesn't see it as growth, it sees it as failure. It tells you that you are losing something important, that you are giving up too soon, that maybe if you just try a little harder, things will finally change. But here is the truth most people realize too late. You are not losing them. You are losing the version of them you created in your mind. You are letting go of expectations, memories, and the hope that things will one day become what you needed them to be. And that is why it hurts so deeply. Because you are not just releasing a person, you are releasing a story you believed in. You are releasing the future you imagined with them, the effort you invested, and the emotional attachment you built over time. And this is where suffering begins, because instead of accepting reality as it is, the mind keeps holding on to what it wishes reality could be. You replay moments, you question yourself, you wonder if you could have done something differently, and slowly you trap yourself in a cycle of emotional attachment that only keeps you stuck. Buddhism explains this clearly through the idea of attachment. The more tightly you hold on to something that is no longer aligned with your life, the more pain you create for yourself. Not because letting go is painful, but because refusing to let go is. Letting go does not mean you didn't care. It does not mean the connection was meaningless. It simply means you have reached a point where your peace matters more than your attachment. It means you are choosing reality over illusion, growth over comfort, and self-respect over emotional dependence. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. There will be moments of silence, moments where you miss them, moments where your mind tries to pull you back into old patterns. But those moments are not signs that you made the wrong decision. They are signs that you are breaking free from something that once had control over you. Over time, something powerful begins to happen. The space that once felt empty starts to feel peaceful. The energy you were constantly giving away starts returning to you. Your mind becomes quieter, your emotions become more stable, and you begin to feel like yourself again. You start realizing that what you thought was loss was actually freedom. You are no longer chasing, no longer overthinking, no longer trying to fix something that was never meant to be fixed. Buddhism teaches impermanence, the understanding that everything in life is temporary: people, situations, emotions, and even the pain you feel right now. When you truly accept this, letting go becomes easier, not because it stops hurting immediately, but because you stop resisting the natural flow of life. You understand that some people come into your life to teach you something, not to stay forever. And once that lesson is learned, holding on only creates unnecessary suffering. So letting go is not about losing someone, it is about returning to yourself. It is about freeing your mind from constant attachment, freeing your heart from emotional dependence, and freeing your life from relationships that no longer serve your growth. And when you finally reach that point where you can release without hatred, without anger, but with clarity and acceptance, that is not weakness. That is one of the strongest things you will ever do. Because in the end, letting go is not the end of something, it is the beginning of your freedom. 4. People will call you different when you start choosing yourself. The moment you begin to change your behavior, something strange starts to happen around you. The same people who were comfortable with your silence suddenly become uncomfortable with your voice. The same people who benefited from your constant availability begin to question why you are no longer there the way you used to be. And instead of understanding your growth, they start labeling it. They say you've changed. They say you're acting different. They say you're not the same person anymore. But what they rarely admit is this: you didn't become worse. You became aware. You became aware of how much of yourself you were giving away without receiving the same respect in return. You became aware of how often you were saying yes when you wanted to say no. You became aware of how much of your energy was being used just to keep certain people comfortable, even when it was making you uncomfortable inside. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. So naturally, your actions begin to shift. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop chasing people who don't meet you halfway. You stop replying instantly just to prove you care. You start taking your time, protecting your space, and choosing your peace over unnecessary conversations. And to someone who was used to the old version of you, this feels like distance. It feels like rejection. It feels like you are becoming cold. But in reality, you are just becoming balanced. This is where many people get confused and fall back into old patterns. They start questioning themselves. They wonder if they are being too harsh, too distant, too selfish. They feel guilty for setting boundaries, as if choosing their own peace is somehow wrong. And because of that guilt, they return to the same behaviors that were draining them in the first place. They reopen doors that were slowly closing for a reason. But this is exactly the moment where growth is tested, because choosing yourself is not always comfortable. It requires you to accept that not everyone will understand your journey. Some people only liked you when you were easy to access, easy to control, easy to rely on, without limits. And when you remove that version of yourself, their perception of you changes. Not because you did something wrong, but because you are no longer fitting into the role they were used to. Buddhism teaches non-attachment, not just to people, but to their opinions as well. If you keep trying to maintain the same image in everyone's mind, you will never grow. You will always adjust yourself based on how others feel about you, and in that process, you slowly lose your authenticity. Real freedom begins when you accept that people will misunderstand you, and you choose your truth anyway. Over time, something powerful happens. The people who only valued your convenience start to fade away. The ones who respected your boundaries stay. And most importantly, your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision. You no longer feel pressured to respond to everything. You move with clarity instead of obligation. And yes, there will be moments where it feels lonely, moments where you question if it was worth it. But that loneliness is not emptiness, it is space. Space that was once filled with noise, expectations, and emotional pressure. And in that space, you begin to rebuild yourself in a more honest, more peaceful way. So when people say you've changed, don't rush to prove them wrong. Let them see the difference. Because you didn't become someone else, you finally stopped being someone you were never meant to be. 5. You are not responsible for fixing everyone. One of the deepest reasons people feel emotionally drained is because they take on a role that was never theirs to begin with, the role of fixing everyone. You listen to their problems, you try to guide them, you give advice, you stay patient, you support them, again and again, even when you are already tired yourself. And somewhere along the way, you stop asking a very important question: who is taking care of you? At first, it feels meaningful. It feels like you are doing something good, something kind, something valuable. You tell yourself that this is what a strong person does. They help others, they stay, they don't give up on people. And while that intention may come from a good place, it slowly turns into something heavy when it is not balanced. Because helping someone occasionally is compassion, but constantly carrying someone else's emotional weight is self-neglect. The problem is, many people don't just share their struggles with you. They depend on you to carry them. They come to you every time something goes wrong, every time they feel lost, every time they need comfort. And you become their safe place, but in the process, you forget to create a safe place within yourself. You start absorbing their stress, their negativity, their confusion, until your own mind becomes crowded with problems that were never yours. And here is the hard truth. You cannot heal someone who does not want to heal. You cannot change someone who is comfortable staying the same. No matter how much advice you give, no matter how much time you invest, no matter how much you care, real change only happens when the person decides to take responsibility for their own life. Until then, you are not helping them grow. you are helping them stay dependent. Buddhism teaches compassion, but it also teaches wisdom and boundaries. True compassion is not about sacrificing yourself to save others. It is about offering support without losing yourself in the process. It is about understanding where your responsibility ends and where someone else's responsibility begins. When you ignore that line, you don't just drain your energy, you lose your clarity, your focus, and your peace. There is also something deeper that happens when you try to fix everyone. You start tying your sense of worth to how much you can help others. You feel needed, and that makes you feel valuable. But this creates a dangerous cycle because you begin to attract people who always need fixing. And instead of building equal, healthy connections, you keep entering relationships where you are the one giving everything while receiving very little in return. Breaking this pattern requires awareness and courage. You have to accept that it is not your job to solve every problem around you. You have to learn to say no without feeling guilty. You have to step back even when a part of you wants to stay and help. And most importantly, you have to understand that letting someone face their own struggles is not cruelty, it is respect for their journey. Over time, when you start creating these boundaries, your life begins to feel lighter. You are no longer overwhelmed by other people's emotions. Your mind becomes clearer, your energy becomes stronger, and your presence becomes more grounded. You still care, but you no longer carry. You still support, but you no longer sacrifice yourself. And this is where true balance begins. Because the moment you stop trying to fix everyone, you finally give yourself the space to heal, to grow, and to live your own life fully. You are not here to save everyone. You are here to understand yourself and to live with peace. 6. Your peace is more valuable than any relationship. There comes a moment in life when you begin to notice something you were blind to before. Not every relationship is meant to bring you peace. Some relationships bring noise, confusion, emotional ups and downs, and a constant feeling of instability. At first, you ignore it. You tell yourself that this is normal, that every relationship has problems, that you just need to be more patient, more understanding, more forgiving, and so you stay, hoping that things will eventually settle, hoping that the peace you are looking for will somehow appear if you just hold on long enough. But slowly, something inside you starts to feel tired. Not physically tired, but emotionally drained. You wake up thinking about things that disturb you. You overthink conversations, you question intentions, you feel uneasy without knowing exactly why. And the worst part is, you start losing your natural state of calm. The peace you once had when you were alone slowly disappears, replaced by anxiety, doubt, and emotional heaviness. This is where many people make a critical mistake. Instead of questioning the relationship, they question themselves. They think, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I'm expecting too much, maybe I'm the problem. And because of that, they try even harder. They give more, tolerate more, adjust more, thinking that if they just become better, the relationship will become peaceful. But the truth is, peace does not come from trying harder in the wrong place. Buddhism teaches something very simple but very powerful. Peace is your natural state. It is not something you need to chase outside. It is something you protect within. And anything that constantly disturbs that peace is not aligned with your well-being. The problem is, many people have been conditioned to believe that relationships must be held at any cost. That letting go means failure. That staying, no matter how it feels, is a sign of loyalty. But what if staying is actually the reason you keep suffering? Think about it carefully. If a relationship constantly makes you feel anxious, confused, or emotionally unstable, what exactly are you holding on to? Is it love, or is it attachment? Because love brings clarity, it brings calmness, It brings a sense of safety. Attachment, on the other hand, creates fear, dependency, and emotional turbulence. And when you confuse attachment with love, you end up protecting something that is slowly destroying your inner peace. Your peace is not something small. It is the foundation of your entire life. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, everything depends on the state of your mind. When your mind is peaceful, you make better decisions. You respond instead of reacting. You feel grounded, present, and in control. But when your peace is disturbed, everything becomes chaotic. Small things feel big. Simple situations become overwhelming, and you lose clarity about what is right for you. So the real question is not, how do I keep this relationship? The real question is, what is this relationship doing to my peace? And once you start asking that question honestly, you begin to see things differently. You start noticing patterns you ignored before. You realize how often you feel drained after certain interactions. You see how much of your energy goes into managing emotions instead of living your life. And slowly, awareness begins to grow. But awareness alone is not enough. The difficult part is acting on it. Because choosing your peace often means making uncomfortable decisions. It may mean stepping back from people you care about. It may mean creating distance where there was once closeness. It may mean letting go of connections that you invested time and emotions into. And this is where fear shows up. The fear of being alone, the fear of losing someone, the fear of starting over. But here is something most people don't realize. You are already alone when you are constantly sacrificing your peace. You are already disconnected when you cannot be yourself freely. You are already losing something when you stay in a place that keeps taking from you without giving you stability in return. Choosing your peace is not about rejecting people. It is about respecting yourself. It is about understanding that your well-being is not something you can compromise endlessly. It is about knowing that you deserve a life where your mind feels calm, your heart feels light, and your presence feels natural. And when you start making decisions based on your peace, something powerful happens. You stop chasing, you stop forcing connections, you stop trying to fix what is not working. Instead, you begin to attract better energy into your life. People who respect your boundaries, people who communicate clearly, people who bring calmness instead of confusion. Your standards rise, not out of ego, but out of awareness. You no longer accept anything that disturbs your inner balance, and because of that, your life becomes simpler. Not easier in every way, but clearer. You know what to allow and what to walk away from. There will still be moments where you feel unsure, moments where you miss the familiarity of old connections, moments where your mind tries to convince you to go back to what felt comfortable. But comfort is not always peace. Sometimes comfort is just something you got used to, even if it was not good for you. Buddhism reminds you again and again, attachment creates suffering, and letting go creates freedom. And when you truly understand this, you stop holding on to relationships that cost you your peace. You stop negotiating with your well-being. You stop choosing temporary connection over long-term stability. You begin to choose yourself. And that choice changes everything. Because when your mind is peaceful, your life becomes aligned. You move with clarity, you think with awareness, and you live without constant emotional weight. You are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are grounded within yourself. So never forget this. Your peace is not negotiable. It is not something you trade for attention, for company, or for temporary comfort. It is the most valuable thing you have. And the moment you truly understand its value, you will never again hold on to anything that takes it away from you. 7. Choosing yourself is the beginning of real power. There comes a moment in life when everything starts to feel different, not because the world around you has changed, but because something inside you begins to shift. You start seeing things more clearly. You start noticing patterns you ignored before. You begin to understand that so much of your exhaustion, your confusion, and your emotional pain did not come from life itself, but from the way you kept abandoning yourself to hold on to people, expectations, and attachments that were never meant to define you. And, in that moment of awareness, a quiet realization begins to form. Maybe the answer was never outside. Maybe the real power was always within you, waiting for you to finally choose it. Choosing yourself sounds simple, but in reality, it is one of the most difficult decisions you will ever make, because it goes against years of conditioning. You were taught to prioritize others, to be available, to be understanding, to keep relationships even when they cost you your peace. You were taught that being needed means being valuable, that sacrificing yourself means being a good person, that staying no matter how it feels is a sign of strength. And because of that, choosing yourself feels unfamiliar. It feels uncomfortable. It even feels wrong at times, like you are doing something selfish or cold. But what if everything you believed about that was incomplete? What if choosing yourself is not selfish but necessary? What if it is not about rejecting others, but about finally accepting yourself? Because the truth is, when you do not choose yourself, you slowly lose your sense of identity. You become a version of yourself that is shaped by what others expect, what others need, what others are comfortable with. And the more you do that, the further you drift away from who you truly are. Choosing yourself is not a loud, dramatic act. It is not about cutting everyone off or isolating yourself from the world. It is a quiet decision that shows up in your daily life. It is in the moments where you decide not to respond immediately, just to prove your care. It is in the moments where you choose to rest instead of overextending yourself. It is in the moments where you say no without feeling the need to explain. It is in the moments where you stop chasing people who are not meeting you halfway. These small decisions may seem insignificant at first, but over time, they begin to rebuild your entire life. At the beginning of this journey, it will feel uncomfortable. You may feel guilty for not giving as much as you used to. You may feel like you are disappointing people. You may feel a strange sense of emptiness, as if something is missing. But that feeling is not because you made the wrong decision. It is because you are no longer filling your life with the same patterns, the same noise, the same emotional distractions that once kept you busy. That emptiness is actually space. Space that is now available for something healthier, something more aligned, something that truly supports your well-being. And this is where real power begins to emerge. Because when you stop depending on others for your sense of worth, your emotional stability, or your happiness, you become independent in a way that most people never experience. You no longer feel shaken by small changes in behavior. You no longer overthink every interaction. You no longer chase validation or approval. Instead, you become grounded within yourself. Your mood is no longer controlled by how others treat you. Your decisions are no longer influenced by fear of losing people. You begin to move through life with a sense of calm confidence that does not need to be proven. Buddhism teaches that true power does not come from controlling the external world, but from mastering the internal one. And choosing yourself is the first step in that mastery. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself, you take control of your inner world. You begin to understand your emotions instead of being controlled by them. You begin to observe your thoughts instead of reacting to them. You begin to create a life that reflects your values instead of someone else's expectations. There is also something important that happens in your relationships when you start choosing yourself. The dynamics begin to change. People who were used to your constant availability may start to distance themselves. People who relied on you for emotional support without giving anything in return may feel uncomfortable. Some may even try to pull you back into your old patterns because your growth challenges the role they were used to. And this can be painful because it may feel like you are losing people, but what you are actually losing is not connection, it is imbalance. You are releasing relationships that were built on you giving more than you received. And in that process, you create space for healthier, more balanced connections to enter your life. Relationships where you are respected, where your boundaries are understood, where your presence is valued, not just your availability. Choosing yourself also changes the way you see yourself. You begin to develop a deeper sense of self-respect. You trust your decisions more. You stop doubting yourself in every situation. You begin to realize that your needs are valid, your feelings matter, and your peace is important. And that realization becomes the foundation of your confidence. Not the kind of confidence that seeks attention or approval, but the kind that is quiet, stable, and unshakable. Over time, you will notice that your life becomes simpler, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you stop complicating it with unnecessary attachments. You stop trying to fix what is not yours to fix. You stop chasing what is not meant for you. You stop holding on to what no longer serves your growth. And in that simplicity, you find clarity. You find direction. You find peace. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments where your old habits try to return. There will still be situations where you feel the urge to go back to your previous patterns, to overgive, to over-explain, to over-invest. But the difference is, now you are aware. Now you can pause. Now you can choose differently. And every time you choose yourself in those moments, you strengthen that inner power even more. It is also important to understand that choosing yourself does not mean you stop caring about others. It does not mean you become distant or disconnected. It simply means that your care is no longer based on self-sacrifice. You can still love, still support, still be there for people, but from a place of balance, not from a place of emptiness. You give without losing yourself. You connect without depending on it for your identity. This is what real power looks like. It is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is not about proving anything to anyone. It is a quiet strength that comes from within. It is the ability to remain calm in situations that once disturbed you. It is the ability to walk away from what is not right for you without needing validation. It is the ability to stand alone without feeling lonely because you are connected to yourself. And when you reach that point, something shifts in the way you experience life. You are no longer reacting to everything. You are no longer chasing every opportunity or every connection. You become selective. You become intentional. You choose what aligns with your peace, your values, and your growth. And that selectiveness is not limitation, it is clarity. Buddhism reminds us that suffering often comes from clinging, from holding on too tightly to things that are temporary. And when you begin to release that grip, when you begin to trust the flow of life instead of resisting it, you experience a different kind of freedom. A freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, not dependent on people, not dependent on outcomes. A freedom that exists within you, regardless of what is happening outside. So, choosing yourself is not just a decision, it is a transformation. It is the moment you stop living on autopilot and start living with awareness. It is the moment you stop abandoning your needs and start honoring them. It is the moment you stop searching for power outside and realize that it has always been within you. And once you truly understand this, once you fully step into this way of living, you will never go back to who you used to be. Not because you are better than others, but because you are finally aligned with yourself. So, choose yourself, not once, but every day. Choose your peace when it is challenged. Choose your truth when it is uncomfortable. Choose your growth when it requires letting go. Because in the end, Choosing yourself is not the loss of anything. It is the beginning of everything. 8. Stop explaining yourself. Your silence is your power. There is a habit that quietly drains more energy than most people realize. The habit of constantly explaining yourself. Explaining your decisions, your boundaries, your feelings, your choices, as if your life needs approval to be valid. You try to make people understand why you did something, why you said no, why you stepped back, why you changed. And the more you explain, the more you feel like you are being pulled into conversations that never truly end. At first, it feels necessary. It feels respectful. You think that if you explain yourself clearly enough, people will understand your intentions, they will respect your choices, and everything will remain peaceful. But over time, you begin to notice something. No matter how much you explain, some people still don't understand. Not because your explanation is unclear, but because they are committed to seeing things from their own perspective. And this is where the real problem begins. You are not explaining to be understood anymore. You are explaining to be accepted. You are trying to control how people perceive you. You are trying to protect your image in their mind. And in that process, you slowly give away your power. Because the moment your peace depends on whether someone understands you or not, you are no longer in control of your inner world. Think about how much energy goes into this. You replay conversations in your head, thinking about what you should have said. You overthink your words, trying to make sure they are perfect. You feel the need to justify even the smallest decisions. And when someone misunderstands you, it bothers you more than it should, because you feel like your truth has not been recognized. Buddhism teaches a powerful form of awareness. Not everything needs a response, and not everyone needs an explanation. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is clarity. It is the understanding that your truth does not need to be proven to those who are not willing to see it. When you begin to reduce how much you explain yourself, something interesting happens. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You may feel like you are being rude, distant, or careless. You may feel like you are leaving things unresolved, but in reality, you are creating space where you are no longer responsible for managing other people's opinions about you. And here is the truth most people struggle to accept. People who respect you do not need long explanations. They understand your boundaries, even if they don't fully agree with them. They trust your decisions, even if they don't have all the details. But people who only value their own comfort will keep questioning you, keep pushing you, keep expecting you to justify yourself until you give in. So the real question becomes, who are you explaining yourself for? Is it for clarity, or is it out of fear? Because when you act from fear, you will always feel the need to say more, to prove more, to defend more. But when you act from clarity, you understand that your actions already speak for you. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to argue. You don't need to win every misunderstanding. This is where silence becomes powerful. Not the kind of silence that comes from suppression or avoidance, but the kind that comes from inner stability. You know who you are. You know why you made your decision, and that is enough. You don't feel the urge to explain every detail, because your sense of self is no longer dependent on external validation. Choosing silence in certain situations is not about ignoring people. It is about protecting your energy. It is about recognizing when a conversation is no longer productive. It is about understanding that some people are not looking for truth. They are looking for control, for reaction, for engagement. And the more you explain, the more you feed that cycle. Over time, as you practice this, your mind becomes quieter. You stop replaying conversations. You stop overthinking every interaction. You stop feeling the need to correct every misunderstanding. And in that quietness, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in a long time: peace. Your communication also becomes stronger. Instead of long explanations, you speak clearly and simply. You say what needs to be said, and then you stop. You don't fill the silence with unnecessary words. You don't try to soften your truth just to make others comfortable. You speak with intention, and you allow your words to stand on their own. There will still be moments where people misunderstand you. There will still be situations where others create their own version of your story. But the difference is, it no longer disturbs you the way it used to. Because you understand something deeper. You cannot control how others see you, but you can control how you see yourself. Buddhism reminds us that attachment to opinions is another form of suffering. The more you try to control how people perceive you, the more you lose your inner peace. But when you release that attachment, when you accept that people will think what they want to think, you become free from that burden. And this freedom changes everything. You move through life with less mental noise. You make decisions without over-explaining them. You set boundaries without long justifications. You walk away from situations without feeling the need to defend your choice. This is not about becoming cold or disconnected. It is about becoming centered. It is about choosing where your energy goes. It is about understanding that not every conversation deserves your time, and not every opinion deserves your attention. In the end, the more you try to explain yourself to everyone, the more you lose yourself. But the moment you learn when to speak and when to remain silent, you take your power back. So, stop over-explaining. Stop trying to make everyone understand you. Stop giving your energy to conversations that only drain you. Speak when it matters. Be silent when it protects your peace. Because your silence is not emptiness, it is strength. 9. Stop chasing what is meant for you will not require you to lose yourself. There is a quiet pattern that controls so many lives without people even realizing it. The constant need to chase. You chase people, you chase attention, you chase validation, you chase relationships, and sometimes you even chase a version of life that feels just out of reach. And at first, it doesn't look harmful. It feels like effort. It feels like ambition. It feels like you are doing what you're supposed to do to keep things together. But over time, this chasing begins to take something from you, your peace, your clarity, and your sense of self. Think about it honestly. How many times have you found yourself trying harder for someone who was not trying the same for you? How many times have you been the one initiating, the one fixing, the one adjusting, the one holding everything together? And instead of stepping back when you noticed the imbalance, you moved forward even more. You gave more time, more attention, more understanding, hoping that your effort would finally create the connection you were looking for. But the truth is, chasing rarely creates real connection. It creates imbalance. It creates a dynamic where one person is constantly giving and the other is constantly receiving. And in that dynamic, you slowly lose your power. Not because someone took it from you, but because you gave it away in the hope of being valued. Buddhism teaches something very clear. Attachment is the root of suffering, and chasing is simply attachment in motion. It is the physical and emotional expression of holding on too tightly to something that is not flowing naturally in your life. You chase because you are attached to an outcome. You chase because you are afraid of losing something. You chase because you believe that if you stop, everything will fall apart. But what if stopping is exactly what you need? Because when something is truly meant for you, it does not require you to abandon yourself to keep it. It does not require constant effort just to maintain its presence. It does not leave you feeling anxious, uncertain, or emotionally unstable. What is meant for you flows with you, not against you. It meets you halfway. It supports your peace instead of disturbing it. Chasing, on the other hand, creates the opposite experience. It makes you feel like you are never enough. It keeps you in a state of trying to prove your worth. It pulls your attention away from your own life and places it into something that is not giving you the same energy back. And the more you chase, the more you reinforce a belief within yourself that you have to work hard just to be valued. This is where the real damage happens. Because once you start believing that your worth depends on how much effort you give to others, you lose your natural sense of self-respect. You start tolerating behavior you would have never accepted before. You start making excuses for people who don't treat you right. You start lowering your standards just to keep something that was never stable to begin with. And all of this happens slowly, quietly, without you even realizing how far you have moved away from yourself. But the moment you pause, the moment you step back and observe your own behavior, something begins to shift. You start to see the pattern clearly. You start to notice how much of your energy has been going into chasing instead of living, and that awareness becomes the beginning of change. Stopping the chase is not easy, because your mind will resist it. It will tell you that if you stop trying, you will lose everything. It will bring up fear, doubt, and insecurity. It will make you question your decision. And this is where most people go back to chasing, not because it is right, but because it feels familiar. But if you stay with that discomfort, if you allow yourself to step back without reacting, something powerful begins to happen. The noise starts to fade. The constant urge to reach out, to fix, to chase, begins to weaken. And in that space, you start reconnecting with yourself. You begin to realize that your life does not revolve around someone else's attention. Your happiness does not depend on someone else's presence. Your peace does not need constant reassurance from the outside. And once you truly understand this, you stop chasing naturally, not as a forced action, but as a result of inner clarity. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of detachment, not as a way to disconnect from life, but as a way to experience it without unnecessary suffering. When you detach from the need to control outcomes, from the need to force connections, from the need to hold on to everything, you create space for things to flow naturally. And this is where life begins to feel different. You no longer feel the need to text first just to keep a connection alive. You no longer feel anxious when someone becomes distant. You no longer feel the urge to prove your worth through effort. Instead, you observe, you allow, you let people show you who they are without trying to change it. And this awareness protects you, because instead of investing your energy blindly, you become selective. You choose where to give your time, your attention, and your presence. You stop pouring into situations that do not grow. You stop chasing people who do not choose you back. And in doing so, you preserve your energy for what truly matters. There is also something deeper that happens when you stop chasing. You start attracting, not because of some external force, but because your energy changes. You are no longer coming from a place of need. You are no longer trying to fill a gap. You are already whole within yourself. And when you operate from that place, the kind of connections you attract are different. They are more balanced, more stable, more aligned with who you truly are. People who value you will meet you halfway. Opportunities that align with you will come without forcing. Life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a flow. And even when things do not work out, it does not affect you the same way, because you are not attached to the outcome. You are not dependent on it for your sense of self. You understand that not everything is meant to stay, and that is okay. This is real freedom. It is not about having everything you want. It is about not losing yourself in the process of trying to get it. So stop chasing. Stop trying to force what is not flowing. Stop giving your energy to what does not grow. Stop proving your worth to those who cannot see it. Step back. Observe. Allow life to show you what is truly meant for you, because what is meant for you will never require you to lose yourself. It will never ask you to sacrifice your peace. It will never make you feel like you are not enough. And the moment you truly understand that, you will never chase again. 10. Build a life that doesn't need their approval. Become whole within yourself. There is a silent trap that holds more people back than failure ever could: the need for approval. Not always obvious, not always spoken, but deeply present in the way you think, act, and make decisions. You want people to understand you, to agree with you, to support your choices, to validate your direction. And when they don't, something inside you hesitates. You question yourself. You slow down. You start wondering if you are making the wrong move, not because it feels wrong to you, but because it doesn't feel right to them. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to build your life around other people's opinions. You choose what is acceptable instead of what is true. You follow paths that are approved instead of paths that are aligned. You stay in situations that are comfortable for others, even when they are uncomfortable for you. And the deeper you fall into this pattern, the further you move away from yourself. At first, it feels normal. You tell yourself that you are being respectful, that you are considering others, that you are doing the right thing by thinking about how your choices affect people. And while there is nothing wrong with awareness and consideration, the problem begins when your entire life starts depending on how others feel about it. Because when approval becomes your foundation, your identity becomes unstable. One person agrees with you, and you feel confident. Another person disagrees, and suddenly you feel unsure. Someone supports you, and you move forward. Someone questions you, and you start doubting everything. Your direction keeps changing, not because your truth is changing, but because your confidence is tied to external voices. Buddhism teaches something that cuts through this illusion. Your peace and your path cannot be built on something that constantly changes. And people's opinions are one of the most unstable things you can rely on. They are shaped by their experiences, their fears, their beliefs, and their limitations. What one person supports, another will question. What one person understands, another will misunderstand. So, if you keep waiting for universal approval, you will never move forward. This is why building a life that does not depend on approval is one of the most powerful shifts you can make, because it changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you make decisions. It changes the way you move through life. But this shift is not easy, because the need for approval is deeply connected to the fear of rejection. You fear being judged, misunderstood, criticized, or left behind. You fear that if people don't agree with you, they might distance themselves. And because of that fear, you adjust yourself. You soften your truth. You hold back your real thoughts. You stay within boundaries that were never meant for you. And the more you do this, the more you disconnect from your authentic self. Choosing to live without needing approval means facing that fear directly. It means accepting that not everyone will understand your journey. It means being okay with being seen differently. It means being willing to stand alone at times, not because you have no one, but because you refuse to lose yourself just to be accepted. At the beginning, this can feel uncomfortable. You may feel exposed. You may feel like you are stepping into uncertainty. You may feel like you are risking something important. But what you are actually doing is reclaiming your power. Because the moment you stop seeking approval, you start listening to yourself. You start asking different questions. What feels right to me? What aligns with my values? What kind of life do I actually want to live? And these questions lead you to a deeper level of clarity, a clarity that is not influenced by noise, not shaped by expectations, not controlled by fear. This is where you begin to build something real, not a life that looks good from the outside, but a life that feels right from the inside. You start making decisions based on alignment instead of approval. You choose paths that resonate with you, even if they don't make sense to others. You express yourself honestly, even if it is not always accepted. You create boundaries that protect your peace, even if they disappoint people. And slowly, something begins to change within you. Your confidence becomes stable, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you trust yourself. Not because you have constant support, but because you have inner clarity. Not because everything is certain, but because you are no longer dependent on certainty to move forward. This kind of confidence is different. It is quiet. It is grounded. It does not need to prove itself. It does not react to every opinion. It does not collapse under criticism. It stands. Buddhism speaks about the idea of inner wholeness, the understanding that you are already complete as you are. Not perfect, not finished, but whole. And when you truly accept this, the need for approval begins to fade, because you are no longer trying to fill a gap within yourself through external validation. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer need everyone to agree with you. You no longer need to explain your every move. You simply live. And in that state, your life becomes more peaceful. Because you are no longer carrying the weight of other people's expectations. You are no longer adjusting yourself to fit into places that do not align with you. You are no longer holding back your growth to keep others comfortable. You become free. But this freedom also comes with responsibility. Because when you stop depending on approval, you can no longer blame others for your choices. You can no longer say, "I did this because they wanted me to." You take full ownership of your life, your decisions, your actions, your direction. Everything becomes your responsibility. And while this may feel heavy at first, it is actually empowering. Because now, your life is truly yours. You are not waiting for permission. You are not looking for validation. You are not asking for approval. You are choosing. And that choice is where your real power lies. Over time, you will notice that the right people begin to align with you naturally. People who respect your independence. People who appreciate your authenticity. People who do not need you to shrink or change to feel comfortable around you. And the connections you build from this place are different. They are not based on approval, but on mutual respect. They are not built on control, but on understanding. They are not driven by fear, but by clarity. This is the kind of life that feels stable, not because everything is perfect, but because you are grounded within yourself. So stop building your life around what others think. Stop waiting for approval to move forward. Stop adjusting your truth to fit someone else's comfort. Stop holding back your growth just to stay accepted. Build a life that reflects who you truly are. Make decisions that align with your values. Trust your own voice, even when it is not supported by others. Because in the end, the strongest person is not the one who is accepted by everyone. It is the one who can stand alone, remain true to themselves, and still move forward with peace. And that is what it means to become whole. 11. Protect your inner world. Not everything deserves your attention. There is something most people never truly realize. Your life is shaped not just by what happens to you, but by what you allow into your mind. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you feed, every situation you give attention to, slowly becomes part of your inner world. And your inner world is where everything begins. The way you feel, the way you react, the way you see life, all of it is influenced by what you repeatedly allow into your awareness. But here is the problem. Most people are not careful with their attention. They give it away freely. They react to everything. They engage in every conversation, every argument, every piece of negativity that comes their way. They scroll through things that disturb their peace, listen to opinions that confuse them, and involve themselves in situations that have nothing to do with their growth. And over time, their mind becomes crowded, filled with noise, tension, and emotional weight. Think about it. How often do you feel mentally tired without doing anything physically exhausting? How often does your mind feel heavy, even when your day was not that demanding? That is not because life is too hard. It is because your attention is being pulled in too many directions. You are carrying things that were never meant to stay in your mind. Buddhism teaches awareness of the mind, because the mind is the source of both suffering and peace. If you do not protect your inner world, you will constantly feel overwhelmed, distracted, and emotionally unstable. But when you begin to observe what you allow into your mind, everything starts to change. Protecting your inner world does not mean avoiding life. It means being selective about what you engage with. It means understanding that not every opinion deserves your reaction, not every situation deserves your energy, and not every thought deserves your attention, because attention is powerful. Whatever you focus on grows. Whatever you repeat becomes your reality. Whatever you give importance to begins to shape your life. And when you are not aware of this, you end up feeding things that drain you without even realizing it. For example, think about how easily your mood can change based on what you consume. One negative conversation can stay in your mind for hours. One small comment can replay in your thoughts again and again. One piece of bad news can affect your entire day. And the reason this happens is not because these things are powerful, it is because your attention is feeding them. The more you think about something, the more real it becomes in your mind. The more you replay it, the more it affects your emotions. The more you engage with it, the more space it takes inside you. And before you know it, something small becomes something heavy. This is why protecting your attention is one of the most important things you can do for your peace. Because the moment you stop feeding what disturbs you, it begins to lose its power over you. But this requires awareness. You have to start noticing what you are allowing into your mind. What are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you talking to? What kind of thoughts are you repeating every day? Because all of these things are shaping your inner world. And if your inner world is filled with negativity, confusion, and constant noise, your life will start to feel the same way. But if your inner world is calm, focused, and clear, your life will reflect that as well. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning to pause before reacting. When something happens, instead of immediately giving it your attention, take a moment, observe it. Ask yourself, does this really deserve my energy? Because not everything does. Some things are simply distractions. Some things are temporary. Some things are not even important in the long run. But when you react to everything, you give everything importance. And that is what creates mental chaos. Buddhism teaches detachment, not as a way to disconnect from life, but as a way to remain stable within it. When you are detached, you can observe things without being controlled by them. You can experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You can engage with life without losing your peace. And this is where real control begins. Not controlling others, not controlling situations, but controlling your attention. Because once you control your attention, you control your mind. And once you control your mind, you control your life. Over time, when you practice this, you will notice a big difference. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop overthinking unnecessary things. You stop reacting to every small situation. You feel more present, more focused, more at peace. You also become more intentional with your energy. You choose what deserves your attention instead of giving it away automatically. You invest your time in things that actually matter. You focus on your growth, your goals, your well-being, instead of getting lost in distractions. And this is where your life begins to feel lighter, because you are no longer carrying everything. You are no longer reacting to everything. You are no longer giving your energy to things that do not deserve it. You are protecting your inner world. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments where something triggers you, where something pulls your attention, where your mind tries to go back to old patterns. But the difference is, now you are aware, now you can catch it, now you can choose differently. And every time you choose to protect your attention, you strengthen your inner stability. This is not about becoming perfect, it is about becoming conscious. Because the truth is, peace is not something you find outside. It is something you create within, and the quality of your inner world determines the quality of your life. So be careful with your attention. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everything deserves your time. Not everything deserves a place in your mind. Protect your thoughts. Protect your energy. Protect your peace. Because once your inner world is stable, nothing outside can disturb you the same way again. 12. Walk alone. If you must, your growth was never meant to be crowded. There comes a point in your life where the path in front of you becomes clear, but quiet. Not because you have lost direction, but because you are finally seeing things for what they are. You begin to understand what aligns with you and what does not. You start noticing who supports your growth and who holds you back. And as this awareness deepens, something unexpected begins to happen. The circle around you starts to change. People you once felt close to begin to feel distant. Conversations that once felt normal start to feel empty. Places that once felt comfortable no longer feel right. And suddenly, you find yourself standing in a space that feels unfamiliar, a space where you are no longer surrounded by the same people, the same energy, the same environment. And in that moment, many people feel fear. They think something is wrong. They think they are losing people. They think they are becoming alone. But what if this is not loss? What if this is alignment? Because growth is not always loud and social. Sometimes growth is quiet, personal, and deeply internal. Sometimes it requires distance. Sometimes it requires you to step away from what is familiar so you can step into what is true. Buddhism teaches that attachment creates suffering, and one of the strongest attachments people hold is the attachment to companionship, to always having people around, to never feeling alone. But this attachment can keep you stuck. It can make you hold on to relationships that no longer serve you. It can make you stay in environments that limit your growth. It can make you choose comfort over truth. And the moment you begin to release that attachment, you create space. But that space can feel uncomfortable at first, because you are not used to it. You are not used to sitting with yourself without distractions. You are not used to walking your path without constant validation. And this is where the real test begins. Can you stay with yourself, even when it feels quiet? Can you trust your path, even when others don't understand it? Can you keep moving forward, even when no one is walking beside you? Because the truth is, not everyone is meant to walk with you at every stage of your life. Some people are meant for certain phases. Some connections are meant to teach you something. Some relationships exist only to help you grow, not to stay forever. And once their role is complete, holding on to them only creates resistance. But letting go does not always feel like freedom at first. Sometimes it feels like emptiness. It feels like silence. It feels like you are stepping into something uncertain. And because of that, many people go back. They reconnect with what they already outgrew. They return to conversations that no longer fulfill them. They choose familiarity over growth. But every time you go back, you delay your own evolution. Because growth requires space. Space to think. Space to understand yourself. Space to rebuild your identity without external influence. And that space often looks like solitude. Now, solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is when you feel disconnected, when you feel like something is missing, when you feel like you need others to feel complete. But solitude is different. Solitude is when you are alone, but not empty. It is when you are with yourself, connected to your thoughts, your values, your direction. And learning to be comfortable in that space is one of the most powerful things you can do. Because When you are comfortable being alone, you stop settling for anything that disturbs your peace. You stop staying in relationships just to avoid loneliness. You stop chasing people just to feel connected. You stop lowering your standards just to have someone around. Instead, you become selective. You choose connection, not out of need, but out of alignment. You value quality over quantity. You prefer peace over constant noise. And this changes everything, because when you no longer fear being alone, you become free from one of the biggest limitations that control people's lives. You are no longer easily manipulated. You are no longer dependent on others for your happiness. You are no longer afraid to walk away when something is not right. You become strong, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, stable way. Buddhism reminds us that the journey to understanding is often walked alone, not because others are not important, but because true clarity comes from within. No one else can fully see your path. No one else can fully understand your inner world, and because of that, there will be moments where you have to trust yourself without external confirmation. This is where your growth deepens. You begin to rely on your own awareness. You begin to listen to your own intuition. You begin to make decisions based on your inner clarity, not external pressure. And over time, something powerful happens. The silence that once felt uncomfortable begins to feel peaceful. The space that once felt empty begins to feel open. The path that once felt lonely begins to feel clear. You start enjoying your own presence. You start finding peace in your own company. You start building a relationship with yourself that is strong, stable, and independent. And from that place, everything changes. Because now, when people come into your life, they are not there to complete you. They are there to complement you. You are not looking for someone to fill a gap, because there is no gap. You are already whole. And this is where real connection begins. Not from need, not from fear, but from balance. Of course, this does not mean you will always be alone. It simply means that you are no longer afraid of being alone. And that difference changes the way you live your life. You walk away when something does not feel right. You stay true to your path, even when it is not popular. You make decisions based on alignment, not approval. And slowly, the right people begin to appear. People who understand your growth. People who respect your space. People who do not need you to shrink to feel comfortable. But until then, you are okay. You are okay walking alone. You are okay growing at your own pace. You are okay choosing your path, even if no one else sees it yet. Because you understand something deeper now. Your journey was never meant to be crowded. It was meant to be real. So, if you find yourself in a season where things feel quiet, where people are falling away, where your path feels different from everyone else, do not panic. Do not rush to fill that space. Do not go back to what you already outgrew. Stay there. Grow there. Understand yourself there. Because in that space, you are becoming who you were always meant to be. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk alone. At the end of all these lessons, everything comes back to one simple truth. Your life begins to change the moment you stop abandoning yourself. For so long, you may have been giving your energy to the wrong people, chasing what was never meant for you, explaining yourself to be understood, sacrificing your peace to keep connections, and building your life around approval that was never guaranteed. And without realizing it, you slowly moved further away from who you truly are. But now you see it. You see how much of your exhaustion came from overgiving. You see how much of your confusion came from holding on. You see how much of your pain came from not choosing yourself. And that awareness is powerful, because once you see it clearly, you cannot go back to living the same way. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins with attachment, and freedom begins with awareness. And now, you have both. You understand where your energy has been going, and you understand what needs to change. Choosing yourself is not one big decision, it is a daily practice. It is choosing your peace over unnecessary drama. It is choosing your truth over approval. It is choosing to let go instead of holding on to what hurts you. It is choosing to walk away when something no longer aligns with your growth. And yes, this path will not always be easy. There will be moments where you feel alone, moments where you question your decision, moments where your mind tries to pull you back into old patterns. But those moments are not signs that you are wrong, they are signs that you are changing, because growth always feels uncomfortable before it feels right. And as you continue choosing yourself, something begins to shift inside you. Your mind becomes quieter, your emotions become more stable, your life becomes simpler. You stop chasing, stop forcing, stop explaining, and stop holding on to what drains you. You become more grounded, more aware, more at peace. And from that place, everything in your life begins to align differently. You attract better people. You create healthier boundaries. You build a life that feels right, not just looks right. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped settling for less than you deserve. So, remember this. You don't lose people by choosing yourself. You lose what was never meant to stay. You don't become selfish by protecting your peace. You become free. And you don't become alone by walking your own path. You become whole. So choose yourself, again and again, every single day, because in the end, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you build with yourself.